It's time, Cougar Nation. Cougar Tracks. The best season analysis with BYU insider Mitch Harper on KSL NewsRadio and on video every day on the YouTube page for KSL Sports.
Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL News Radio. I am your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. Happy to have you on board to the show, which is daily, every single day. Cougar Tracks comes to you every single day to give you the latest in BYU sports. And this week, the hot topic is BYU making its first trip to Folsom Field since 1981. It's our top story, BYU and Colorado.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
Number 25, BYU, at 3-0 on the season, takes on 2-2 Colorado, 8:15 p.m. on ESPN and KSL News Radio. Extended pregame will begin at 6 o'clock on the legacy home of the Cougars. From Boulder, I'll be out there with Kyle Ireland in Boulder. First time since 81. Remember, that game was Jim McMahon gets banged up. Steve Young steps in. BYU wins that game in 81. But it's crazy to think that a program that's in a bordering state, BYU hasn't played in their venue since 81. That's 44 years ago. Obviously, though, these two teams met very recently. That was the 2024 Alamo Bowl. I was there in San Antonio to witness that beatdown that BYU gave to the Buffs, 36-14. And I got to say, that was one of the great wins in BYU football history, because bowl games have never been kind to BYU historically, and just to see that sheer dominance, and then you factor in how the national media just glazed Colorado the whole week. I remember being in San Antonio at that Alamo Bowl luncheon, and it was just Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, and you almost got the impression that the host, the MC, didn't even know BYU players' names. You're just thinking, man, BYU is just being disrespected here in this game. And Jay Hill, of course, had a ace up his sleeve. He was very confident going into that game. The defense dominated. The offense started slow, but then they dominated. Special teams was dominant too. BYU just hammered the Buffs. It was crazy, though. BYU was up 27-0 in that game. And Travis Hunter got that one touchdown, and I swear we saw more highlights of that than anything else in BYU's win. Even in the Big 12 hype video at Big 12 Media Day, they showed that play of Travis Hunter taking it to the house in the Alamo Bowl, but it is what it is. I have a lot of respect for Colorado and Coach Prime, and so does Kalani Sitake. Those two have a lot of respect for one another. This was Kalani on that relationship with Coach Prime and where that stems from.
I'm a big Deion Sanders fan. That's how it came about, and seeing the way he played football and all the things that he did is, and then a lot of people that I knew that kind of crossed paths with him. Tom Homo, Brian Mitchell was a great teammate of his. Said all these wonderful things about him, and so being a fan and then being able to meet him and talk with him, and it's not just him; it's his staff. They have some amazing people on that staff and amazing young men on that team, and so just being around them all, for that time that we were at the bowl game, just confirmed that there's a lot of really good people there and highly competitive people. They want to win, but when you get to know I think we get to know all the competitive parts of an opponent. It's sometimes nice to get to know the human element and see that they're loving people too, but when it gets time to play the game, I know that they'll be really competitive, and so will we, but there's some of the things I learned from Lavelle is to definitely respect your opponent and always try to find ways to connect with people. And so I'm trying to do that. And I'm really thankful for the relationship that I have with a lot of coaches and all the coaches in this conference. And I'm excited about the relationship that I have with Deion and what he's been able to do. Coach Prime's done a great job as a leader. And so, I'm always trying to connect with people. If anything, the head coaches at other programs know what I'm going through. So there's a lot of common ground there. And when we are able to talk before the game and even after the game. I just hope that they know how much I appreciate and respect them.
Deion Sanders and Kalani have a lot of respect for one another. Kalani, obviously very complimentary there of Coach Prime, and Coach Prime was complimentary of Kalani at the Alamo Bowl, and I'm sure he will be again this week. And, it's interesting. I think that Colorado, this program, is fascinating because I think a lot of people on the outside looked at Colorado and just thought Coach Prime won't stay past Shedeur Sanders and Shiloh Sanders leaving the program. He's just there to coach his kids. No, the guy is invested in being a high-level coach. This is not just some entertainment stunt. I've always respected the way that Coach Prime, is in his ascent in college football. I remember when there was reports that he was being linked to possibly the TCU job before they ended up getting Sonny Dykes. It worked out for TCU getting Dykes, but I just think Coach Prime's a big-time coach, and he's great for the Big 12 Conference, and these games against Colorado just have so much more juice to them with Coach Prime on the sideline, because it wasn't too long ago Colorado was just a terrible program in college football. Historically, they've got great history. Colorado has excellent history. When they were going into the 21st century, you could have said that's maybe one of the top 30 programs all time in college football, and they had a massive fall from about 2007 to 2022. It was a 15-year just descent where college football in Colorado was just an afterthought. And Coach Prime has really revived that program. They've got a huge fan base. We saw that in San Antonio. That was a pro-Colorado crowd. And look, I go to many BYU games, including last week at ECU, where BYU produced about 7,000 to 8,000 fans in Greenville. It's not very often BYU gets completely outnumbered. So there is a massive following for Colorado. There will be a lot of eyeballs once again on this game, as there was last year in the Alamo Bowl, where there was 8 million viewers. So it's a huge opportunity for BYU. And Kalani discussed if there could be any carryover from that Alamo Bowl win last season and between these two teams.
There's always some carryover, but the players aren't the same on both sides, so and then you're always trying to find ways to get you a competitive advantage. So that's the fun part in the game and the prep during the week, is that we don't know exactly what they're going to do. We have an idea, but they don't know exactly what we're going to do too. So you have to kind of prep for all of it, and then you have to make adjustments and see what happens in the game on Saturday night. So it's what we have to do every week, and it just happens that we played these guys in a bowl game, and now we see them, for us, game 4. So now this one's on the road, and we just got to be ready for it.
But there's one big difference for BYU, and that's, of course, at quarterback and Bear Bachmeier, who I believe turned the corner in a big way in that win over East Carolina. I thought Bear was excellent in that second half, to the point where you're thinking, okay, this is not just conservative mode all the time for Bear. This was a guy that it seemed like it clicked. He found his rhythm as BYU starting quarterback. This was Kalani on what worked so well for Bear in that second half against ECU from what he saw in the review on film.
I think he was making great decisions before. He just wasn't connecting on all the plays. I started with play 1. However it was, between him and Parker, that should have been a completion. But you just keep playing, and you keep taking advantage of your opportunities that come down. I mean, you forget about that play. It's a play-to-play type of deal. You have to forget about it and keep moving on. And he did a great job at that, moving on from when he could have had a throwaway, could have had a play. And I was just really pleased with everything that he's done, from the audibles, the checks that he made, getting the guys out of the huddle. And I thought he did a great job, and he seemed to grow up quite a bit from the first play to the second half, and I think that was really good for us to see him do that. And I'm excited about what he can do. He's highly intelligent, has great football IQ, great leader. He's tough, and things are starting to click for him. So we just need to make sure to keep that momentum going.
That's BYU head coach Kalani Sitake on Bear Bachmeier. Let's take our first time out. We'll get to more Cougar Tracks as BYU gets ready to take on the Colorado Buffaloes on Saturday night in Folsom Field. 8:15 kick on ESPN and KSL News Radio. More Cougar Tracks after this. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube page. Make sure to like this video if you could. Subscribe to the KSL Sports YouTube and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Overcast, Pocket Cast. So many different ways. Any podcast platform, app, we've got you covered with Cougar Tracks. So just search Cougar Tracks, search BYU football. You'll be able to find this podcast wherever and however you want to listen to your podcast. So this week with BYU heading into Big 12 conference play, the year 3 for the Cougars in Big 12 play, but game number 1 of Big 12 play for BYU, I thought it'd be a good time to roll out my Big 12 football power rankings. Now, keep in mind, I do roll these out every single week on 1st and 12. I host that show weekly with Alex Keary Tuesday nights on KSL News Radio from 7 to 9. It's a Big 12 football check-in on the 16-team league, but wanted to roll out my power rankings as BYU is entering conference play this week. And number 16, it's Oklahoma State. No surprise there. After you lose to Tulsa, Mike Gundy's hot seat has to be scorching hot. And Gundy, I love coaches that are attached and synonymous with the university, and he has built Oklahoma State football. I remember when they had Les Miles before Mike Gundy, and Oklahoma State had moments, and obviously Barry Sanders in the 80s, but Mike Gundy is Oklahoma State football, and it's a tricky spot if you're that athletic department, which is kind of in flux too, but it just feels like you lose to Tulsa at home when you're a double-digit favorite. This is not good, and I think you got to make a change. I mean, I would probably go with like a Colin Klein, a G.J. Kinney at Texas State, and move on. It's tough, but I mean, you got 2 great decades of Gundy. I think you need maybe just a new voice to freshen things up and get some new energy into that program, but we shall see. He seems very adamant that he's going to continue coaching after this season, so we'll see what happens there. Number 15, Kansas State. It's been a tough year for K-State. They just got done with the bye. We'll see what they do this week hosting UCF, but K-State's season's lost. I just don't see any way they recover. West Virginia at 14, they got hammered against Kansas. You know, they've been a nasty defense this year, got a lot of sacks, but last week they could not muster any sacks against Kansas. West Virginia, they've shown signs of promise, and it's an overhauled roster. They got that big win in the backyard brawl, but it's a transition year for Rich Rod in year 1. Number 13, Colorado. The Buffs have been a little bit of a mixed bag. The defense, and obviously BYU is going to take on Colorado this week. The defense is the biggest liability, I think, with this group. Caden Salter, Ryan Staub. Salter, I think, I don't want to say cemented himself, but he made it clear that he should be QB1 after his performance against Wyoming. I was stunned that they honestly made a change after the Delaware game when you looked at that game and kind of thought, maybe it's just an audition to kind of get intel on all these quarterbacks against a weak opponent. But they actually elevated Staub from that performance. It was kind of shocking, honestly. But Colorado, to me, goes at 13. At 12, I'm going to go with Cincinnati. And that's, gosh, that feels a little bit low to me. But it's just how it kind of played out. But I think Cincinnati's going to knock off some teams. I think when BYU plays down there November 22nd, that could be a tricky spot. Some really good wide receivers at Cincinnati. So I got the Bearcats at 12. Number 11, Baylor. Now, Baylor's defense showed some real steps forward against Arizona State. They're losing games. They lost 2 games. I don't want to be that pollster that I complained about on this show. Well, you lose, but you're losing to good teams. They got to win the games. You got to win some football games. And at what point does Dave Aranda's program turn the corner and stack up some big-time victories? They've had many opportunities. And last year they were excellent down the stretch, but they've had a lot of missed opportunities. Even in the win over SMU, they were giving up a ton of points. I don't know if I look at Baylor as a title contender in this league, and obviously losing at home against ASU, that put them behind the 8 ball a little bit. Next up is UCF, and UCF been a pleasant surprise. The schedule has been incredibly weak thus far. It's been all at home, weak teams, including North Carolina, but they hammered North Carolina. And I think that's of note that, you know, UCF only won 5 games last year. Scott Frost has got them feeling confident. They had a recent tragedy with the staff coach passing away, which I'm sure high emotions there in that program right now. But Scott Frost has given them a little bit of an attitude, dissing the folks like Bill Belichick, calling them central. They take that personal at UCF. And that's what you kind of expect out of UCF. They used to be branded as the future of college football. Hasn't been anything that's futuristic about UCF football since they joined the Big 12. I'm still not seeing that yet, but they've been a lot more competent and proof of concept farther ahead than I kind of thought they would be to this point of the season. Next up, as we get into the top 10 of the Big 12 football power rankings here on Cougar Tracks, number 9, Arizona. Arizona's got a nasty defense. They're undefeated. Arizona, and I think their offense with Seth Daggy has been a really good fit so far for Noah Fafita. I like the Wildcats. I think that defense, though, is what really stands out to me. So Arizona at 9. Number 8, Kansas. They had that setback in the border war a few weeks back, but they've been hammering folks at home, and they crushed West Virginia. Is this the year Kansas is more of a title threat than ever before? We had thought that 2 years ago. I think they got a little bit more production from their running backs to help out Jalen Daniels, because early on in the season, it was only just Jalen Daniels' show. And then the return game's been excellent for Kansas as well. So Kansas, pretty good team. 7, Houston. Now, Houston to me is really interesting. Colorado was so devastated losing to Houston, thinking that it was just the end of the world. I think people are kind of discrediting Houston. Now, that Colorado loss to Houston, it was just a poor effort, poor performance. So I get it from that standpoint. But I honestly think you're going to look at seasons in and go, this could be maybe a 9-win football team, Houston. Sounds crazy, but I think Houston is for real. I like what they got going on at Houston. And mind you, going into the season, they lose their starting running back due to an injury. And then they got the transfer from Rice, Connor. Has been excellent, number 44 for Houston. And then Connor Wegman at quarterback. I like the Cougs. I think they are a tough team. They're going to be really good. Number 6, Utah. They fell off quite a bit after that loss to Texas Tech. But I don't want to discredit too much because they, lost to a good team. But still, I think they got, we needed to pump the brakes just a bit. Beating UCLA doesn't mean you've arrived. And again, that's the problem with college football. They looked at the logo, UCLA, the zip code, the area code, the aura of the stadium. Oh, they put up a massive offensive performance. They're back. The offense is back. No, UCLA was putrid, awful. Maybe pump the brakes a little bit. And then we find out Devin Dampier was banged up and was not practicing leading up to Texas Tech, was never in doubt. Utah issued a statement late last night, but same song and dance with Utah. And is he in? Is he not? What is going on here? We'll see if going forward, Devin Dampier just gets listed as probable. I think that would have made a lot of sense if he's not practicing. He's going to play, probable. Just put him on there. I don't know. Number 5, Arizona State. ASU, I think, is really good, and they just get discredited because of the Mississippi State loss. And that was a miscue, a colossal mistake by the Sun Devils. But I think ASU, that big win at Baylor, sound performance against Texas State. I think they got a little bit of nastiness in this defense, a lot more maybe than even last year. And last year's defense was excellent, and their run game is still very good. I think ASU definitely top 5. That one loss is just kind of holding them back from being in the top 3. Number 4, Iowa State, undefeated. They just got done with a bye week. The Cyclones have been solid. I think I don't know what their ceiling is. I don't know if I look at them as a Big 12 favorite. Obviously, they're 4 in my power rankings, but you look at the resume of their wins, K-State, Iowa, okay. As the season progresses, it's not as glamorous as it looked at in the moment when those wins happen, but still, you're stacking up the wins. That Arkansas State close call, that was just a super hot game. Get in, get out, just get the win. I'm not knocking them for that. I just think that the teams in front of them are slightly better. Number 3, I've got BYU. BYU, I think they've really turned the corner with their offense, with Bear Bachmeier. Still got to stack it up a few more consecutive weeks. It's just one game, but BYU's defense is for real. They are the best defense, I believe, in the Big 12. BYU's got an outstanding defense. They are elite, and it's going to show up every single week. And I think they've got depth, too, that if they have an injury or two, they can withstand that and still be playing at a high level. The key guys, of course, are Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker, but then, of course, running back L.J. Martin's been outstanding as well. Number 2, TCU. I love the explosive playmaking ability of TCU. They were without their top running back, the UTSA transfer this past week against SMU. Didn't matter, though. They just go through the air. Eric McAllister had 254 yards and 5 touchdowns in what was potentially the final iron skillet game against SMU. He was the 7th player in Big 12 history to record 250-plus receiving yards in one game. That passing attack is legit. The defense is talented with Bud Clark. I love TCU. I picked TCU to go to Arlington back in the summertime. I'm sticking with it. And maybe, but I also like their resume, too, to this point, how they're just hammering teams and taking care of business. They had a little bit of a scare there. They got down against SMU, but then bounced back. I think TCU's really good. And then number 1, Texas Tech. This was my preseason pick to win the Big 12. They've looked great thus far, and they hammered Utah with a backup quarterback. Will Hammond stepped in, and they were even more aggressive. I thought it was impressive how, 13-10? You're thinking, okay, they're going to get a little bit conservative, back up, just hold on to the game. No, they went through the air even more and stayed true to their identity. So Texas Tech is looking awesome. And remember, they lost their starting running back, the transfer from USC. They haven't skipped a beat yet. Now, the schedule's still been kind of light still outside of the Utah win, but Texas Tech's for real. And they deserve to be even higher in the AP top 25 than they currently are. I think the Red Raiders are outstanding. So that's my Big 12 football power rankings as BYU gets set to open up Big 12 play beginning this weekend in Boulder. Taking my final timeout. More Cougar Tracks next. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper here with you. Initial impressions of the Colorado Buffaloes. The Buffs are 2-2 on the season, and coming off a win over Wyoming last week where they were pretty much in cruise control. They were up 28-3, ended up winning by 17, 37-20. So they probably could have been a desire to maybe finish that game stronger, but by all accounts, they were in cruise control against a Wyoming team that really has no offense to speak of, is Wyoming. But, coming out of that game, Colorado had some key players get a little bit banged up, so that's going to be something to monitor this week in the player availability reports. Jordan Seaton, a 5-star offensive lineman who's in his sophomore year with the Buffs. Simeon Price, a running back. DeKalen Taylor. Both Price and Taylor are running backs, 2 of the top running backs in that backfield. Now, Colorado's rush offense is, it's definitely by committee once again. I think it's better than last year's group that BYU faced in the Alamo Bowl. But Caden Salter, the quarterback, is their leading rusher, and he didn't play against Houston. So that kind of speaks to how much they distribute the carries in that backfield. They've also got Micah Welch as well in that backfield for Colorado. A lot of the coaching staff returns, the coordinators, Robert Livingston, the defensive coordinator, NFL background, Pat Shurmur, offensive coordinator. He's been under fire a little bit. I think with the Colorado faithful, you kind of see on social media, on message boards, it's been mixed feelings on Shurmur. I think, that offense, they just got to settle in on a quarterback. And I think that's the key for Colorado because they've been doing this quarterback roulette thing with Salter, Ryan Staub. They've got the heralded Juju Lewis, who was all the talk at the Alamo Bowl down in San Antonio. It was all the Colorado media would ask. I'm like, folks, there's an actual game to be played here. I know that you're looking at the future, but there's an actual game. You're talking about a guy that's not going to play it down. He was going through those bowl practices then, so that's what made it a storyline. But Colorado's got a star-studded coaching staff, though. Coach Prime, of course, leads the way. He's in year 3. Marshall Faulk, former San Diego State NFL legend, Hall of Famer. He's coaching the running backs. Man, I instantly have flashbacks to BYU, San Diego State, Marshall Faulk, Thursday Night Football, baby. Warren Sapp, he's the pass rush specialist for the Buffs. The U, Miami. Love that. Total defense, though, is the issue for Colorado. They are 110th nationally. And here's something that should bring a huge grin to the face of BYU running back LJ Martin. Colorado is 121st nationally in rush defense. Yeah, turn to LJ some more. Every single game this season, LJ's popped off at least one run of 40 yards or more. So this might be a game that's a spot where you can get some big numbers once again through the ground. It's interesting, too. Colorado's got the second most talented roster in the Big 12 behind Texas Tech, according to 24/7 Sports. And you look at their roster, they got a lot of 5-stars. They got 3 5-stars, which is the most in the Big 12. And you compare that to BYU, BYU's got the 14th ranked roster based on star talent in the Big 12 conference. Meanwhile, BYU's the ranked team. Colorado's still kind of in a little bit of a transition, trying to figure itself out this season, but there is talent there. And I bring that up because Colorado's got some skill and some talent. I think they've also improved in the trenches compared to last year. I thought they were overmatched against BYU in the Alamo Bowl. So they bolstered that area, but it's still kind of a work in progress for this group because their games against power conference opponents this season, they're 0-2. Their 2 wins are against Delaware and Wyoming. So there are some areas, I think, where BYU, you could say that this could be a game where BYU dominates Colorado potentially. BYU's a touchdown favorite in this game, and for good reason. I think it's well-deserved. BYU is the better football team. I think they're the more complete team, and I think BYU's the overall better coach team. There's just an identity to BYU, whereas Colorado's still trying to figure that out. They've got a good coaching staff, and I think Robert Livingston's a really good defensive coordinator. Just for whatever reason, it hasn't been working out so far. And when you lose guys like Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner, it's going to be a dip. It's going to be a transition, but they've got skill. They got talent, and I think they've improved in the trenches, but they also got to stay healthy too. If they didn't have Seton, which, again, Coach Prime kind of downplayed any sort of significance of the injury, but if Seton does miss, that would be huge for BYU because he is a NFL offensive tackle. He is legit. He's a special talent. So that will be stuff to monitor on the player availability report going forward this week. But it's going to be a great game. I think BYU and Colorado has the potential. I don't want to say it's a rivalry potentially. I think BYU, if you talk about non-Utah teams that could potentially be rivals, that to me is Arizona State and Baylor on the gridiron. I think those are the 2 programs I would look at that kind of fit that billing. But I think that this has the potential to be a highly entertaining football game in that late night spot that kind of a drag to always get that, but BYU thrives in that space. And Colorado's kind of getting used to that too, playing those late night games since Coach Prime has been the head coach of the Buffs because they always deliver a massive rating no matter what time of the day they play their game. So it's going to be a good one. BYU and Colorado kick off at 8:15 p.m. on ESPN and KSL News Radio. Again, extended pregame will begin at 6 o'clock. Myself and Kyle Ireland will have you covered in Boulder to get you ready for the Cougs and the Buffs. Colorado leads the all-time series, but most of these meetings were back in the 40s, the 30s, the 20s even, the Rocky Mountain Conference days. Now it's conference foes once again, and this one actually matters in the conference standings. We'll talk more about BYU and Colorado tomorrow with an insider breakdown of the Buffs tomorrow. We'll get to know the foe that way and more BYU football talk and also some Big 12 basketball power rankings. Be on the lookout for that. This has been Cougar Tracks here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports YouTube page.